Hey everyone, today we're delving into the quirky side of history with a look at 15 weird ancient games that entertained our ancestors. Let's begin with number 15, the Mesoamerican ball game. The Mesoamerican ball game, known in Nahuatl as Olamalitzli and in Mayan as Pitz, has roots extending back to at least 1650 BC. This ancient sport was played by various pre-Columbian civilizations across Mesoamerica and still survives in a modern form called ulama among some indigenous communities. The exact rules of the ball game remain a little bit unclear, but the game's objectives likely resembled those of racquetball, where players aimed to keep the ball in play. In its most common form, players struck a solid rubber ball weighing up to 4 kilograms with their hips. Variants of the game permitted the use of forearms, rackets, bats, or even handstones. Now, beyond the recreational aspects, the ball game held significant ritual importance. Major ball games were ceremonial events, and in later periods, some games incorporated human sacrifice as part of their religious practice. Archaeological evidence of the ball courts span across Mesoamerica from Copan to modern Nicaragua, and potentially as far north as present-day Arizona. The distribution of these courts supports the theory that the ball game served not only as a sport, but as a mechanism for conflict resolution and social cohesion. Symbolism played a huge role in the ball game. Astronomical connections were drawn with the bouncing ball representing the sun and the stone scoring ring signifying sunrise, sunset, or equinoxes. The game did also symbolize war, with the ball representing a vanquished enemy in Maya culture. The game embodied cosmological duality. It symbolized the struggle between day and night or life in the underworld, with courts considered portals to the underworld. Number 14, He'e Holua. He'e Holua, commonly known as Holua, is a traditional Hawaiian mountain sledding sport with deep cultural and mythological roots. Athletes use a 12-foot sled to launch themselves headfirst down steep courses, often exceeding speeds of 50 miles an hour. Competitions measure the distance each competitor slides, with the farthest mark determining the winner. Now, historically, it was closely associated with Hawaiian royalty. However, the sport was enjoyed by all social groups, with men, women, and children participating, though men were the primary practitioners. The term holua is used broadly when referring to the sport, the sled, papaholua, and the courses themselves. Longer courses, typically over 2 miles, are called holualoa, with each course bearing a specific name, such as Keoahu Holua. Now, these courses were made of rock, and athletes could ride standing up, lying down, or even kneeling. The sleds are crafted from hard native woods, and it has a pair of runners with upcurved fore edges, straight aft edges, and rounded lower edges connected by cross pieces. The superstructure is made of smaller rails and bamboo cross pieces that sit on top, all bound together with cordage. Beyond its thrill, though, the practice held significant ritual importance, serving as a religious ritual to honor the gods. The sport's blend of physical prowess, cultural significance, and communal engagement offers a unique glimpse into traditional Hawaiian society. Number 13, Mahen. Mahen is an ancient Egyptian board game named after the snake deity Mahen. Now, the game dates back to the pre-dynastic period around 3000 BC, and it was played until the end of the Old Kingdom around 2300 BC. Physical evidence of Mahen includes boards from those periods, with the earliest depictions found in the tomb of Hesera, and its name first recorded in the tomb of Rahotep. Scenes from the 5th and 6th dynasties also illustrate people playing it. However, there are no records of the game being played during the Middle or New Kingdoms, indicating it fell out of favor in Egypt after the Old Kingdom. The game wasn't confined to just Egypt. It also appeared in locations such as Bab Edra and Cyprus. In Cyprus, Mahen boards often feature the opposite side of Setet boards. Mahen persisted in Cypriot culture longer than in Egypt, indicating the game's integration into local traditions. Now, the gameplay and rules of Mahen do remain unknown, but the Egyptian game board typically depicted a coiled snake divided into rectangular squares with variations in the number of segments. Boards found in Cyprus and Levant featured spirals of depressions, with some having differentiated central or outer depressions. The number of segments or depressions varied, suggesting that this aspect wasn't crucial to the game's mechanics. Well, archaeological finds suggest that the game might have been played with lion or lioness-shaped pieces, in sets ranging from 3 to 6, along with small spheres, possibly marbles or balls. Number 12, Pelota Purepecha. The Purepecha ball game has been a significant cultural tradition for over 3,500 years. This ancient sport intertwines myth and symbolism far beyond a simple societal or recreational activity. According to legend, the game, often played with a rag ball, was created during the tumultuous birth of the planet Mars. When played with the ball aflame, it symbolized the sun's journey across the sky or the eternal struggle between night and day. Historical documents here reveal that two gods once clashed during a ball game, indicating the game's deep mythological roots. The Purepecha ball game has been passed down through the generations, from pre-Columbian times to the present. Each team consists of 6 players, and matches are divided into 2 15-minute halves. Unique to this game, each athlete acts as their own referee, ensuring adherence to rules and fair play. The rules include always looking to the right, not switching the hand holding the cane, not turning their back on the opponent, not hitting the ball with limbs or your body, and avoiding assaulting opponents. In Purepecha cosmology, their people are even seen as born from their universe, embodying the struggle between the dualities such as the sun and moon, day and night, or man and woman. The court represents the universe, and the players are stars engaged in a cosmic battle. The fireball symbolizes the spirit and the god of fire, adding a spiritual element to the game. Number 11. Chunki. Chunki, also known as Chunky or Chenko or even Tchunki, is a Native American game that involves rolling disc-shaped stones and throwing spears to land as close as possible to the stop stone. Originating around 600 CE near modern-day St. Louis, Missouri, Chunki was played in large arenas, some as expansive as 47 acres, designed to bring together diverse groups such as farmers, immigrants, visitors, and natives. The game persisted beyond the fall of the Mississippian culture around 1500 CE, with variations played through North America. Early ethnographer James Adair translated the name Chunki to mean running hard labor, reflecting the game's physical demands. Gambling was commonly associated with Chunki, with participants often wagering their possessions on the game's outcome. The falcon dancer, or warrior, a key figure in the southeastern ceremonial complex, was frequently depicted as a Chunki player, highlighting the game's cultural significance. Chunki held considerable value and influence across North America, far surpassing the scope of a mere game. It was a political tool used for diplomacy with other tribes and served as a means for everyday peoples to settle their disputes. The trust in the game's results illustrates its role as a symbol of peaceful negotiation, both on a personal level and within a broader societal context. The game's cultural and political significance does highlight its multifaceted role in ancient North American society. Unlike modern games, which are often primarily recreational, Chunki integrated elements of diplomacy, conflict resolution, and societal cohesion. Number 10. Chaturanga. Now, chess is perhaps the most respected game of wits ever invented, played by intellectuals and adored among kings and noblemen in late medieval courts. It's got a long history, and it includes famous players measuring their skills against present and past masters, garnering fan bases and documenting legendary moves to outsmart opponents. The origins of chess remain debated, shrouded in myths that lend a game a mystic, almost religious dimension. Some legends claim that King Solomon invented the game or that it was a gift from Hermes, the Greek messenger god. More grounded theories suggest it was created by a Chinese army commander named Han Sing in the 1st century BC to entertain his troops. However, the most plausible version is that chess was invented in India between the 5th and 7th centuries AD. Played on a 64-square black and white board known as the chessboard, chess offers an endless string of possibilities, making it resistant to drastic changes over the centuries. The ancient predecessor of chess, called Chaturanga, featured different pieces. The rook, queen, and bishop were originally a chariot, a general, and an elephant. The Sanskrit word Chaturanga means 4 divisions, or an army, reflecting the military strategic nature of the game. Chaturanga derived from an earlier Chinese board game, likely influenced several other board games in China, Korea, and Central Asia. Unlike the modern checkered chessboard, the Chaturanga board, known as the Ashtapata, has 64 fields and certain markings. Scholars such as H.J.R. Murray suggest these markings were remnants from an older race-type board game that used dice for movement. The Ashtapata board predated Chaturanga and carried over its markings purely as a tradition. Chess spread to Persia by 600 AD, where it was named Shah after the Persian ruling title. The word checkmate comes from the Persian phrase, "the king is dead." The game evolved into a form resembling modern chess by this time, and Arabic merchants played a critical role in bringing chess to Europe through North African trade routes. From Spain, it then spread across Europe, reaching as far as northern Russia. Number 9. Go. Go is an abstract strategy board game for 2 players in which the objective is to capture more territory than the opponent by fencing off empty spaces. Originating in China over 2,500 years ago, it's considered the oldest board game still played today. A 2016 survey by the International Go Federation reported that over 46 million people worldwide know how to play Go, with more than 20 million active players predominantly in East Asia. The earliest written reference to Go appears in the Zhuozuan, a historical annal from the 4th century BC, which mentions the game in an event at 548 BC. The game is also discussed in Confucian texts, referred to as Yi. In China, Go is known as Wei Qi, meaning encirclement board game. It was historically regarded as one of the 4 cultivated arts of the Chinese scholar gentleman, alongside calligraphy, painting, and playing the guqin, a musical instrument. The game's rules were traditionally passed down orally rather than in written form. Go is a contest between 2 players aiming to capture territory by occupying and surrounding empty areas on the board with their stones. As the game progresses, players place stones to form groups and enclosed spaces. Stones are never moved once placed, but captured stones are removed from the board. Stones connect to each other by being adjacent along the board's lines. The game involves complex interactions between opposing formations, leading to expansions, reductions, or captures of territories known as eyes. A crucial aspect is controlling the offensive initiative, which forces the opponent into defensive moves. This control typically shifts multiple times during a game. Players aim to fence off territory, attack weak groups, and maintain the life status of their own groups. The game's complexity does include capturing races or semii, where the groups of stones compete for survival, and the group with more liberties or open spaces adjacent to stones usually prevails. The end game involves players passing when no profitable moves remain. The game concludes when both players pass or when one resigns. To determine the winner, each player counts the unoccupied points surrounding by their stones, subtracting the number of stones captured by the opponent. The player with the higher score, adjusted for handicaps like the komi, wins the game. Go is so intricate that many researchers believe it helps to combat early-onset dementia and Alzheimer's. Number 8. Pancration. Pancration was one of the most popular combat sports in ancient Greece, combining elements of wrestling and boxing while also allowing kicking. The name pancration derives from the ancient Greek words pan and kretos, meaning all power, signifying the victor as the one who achieved complete control over his opponent. Participants known as pancrationists were celebrated athletes, with figures like Polydamas and Theagenes standing out as dominant Olympic champions. The sport made its Olympic debut in 648 BC during the 33rd Olympiad and quickly captivated audiences with its diverse nature. Historically, fights could be brutal, with no restrictions apart from prohibiting eye gouging and biting. The contest concluded when only one opponent was knocked out or conceded defeat by raising his index finger. As Greek society evolved and became more sophisticated, the intensity of the sport led to concerns about its safety. Consequently, the men's pancration was gradually replaced by a less violent version for boys, which officially entered the games in 200 BC. Referees, armed with stout rods or switches, enforced the rules and had the authority to halt the fight if they deemed it too dangerous. This practice likely began after 200 BC, as judges took on a more active role in ensuring the safety of the athletes. Pancration's popularity extended beyond the Olympics, with numerous tournaments held across the Greek city-states. These events began with special rituals dedicated to the gods, highlighting the sport's cultural and religious significance. The pancrationists competed for glory and honor, marking pancration as one of the most esteemed and celebrated sports of ancient Greece. Moving on to number 7, Setet. An ancient Egyptian board game similar to modern games like Ludo or backgammon, offers profound insights into ancient religious beliefs. This game was more than mere entertainment. It symbolized the journey of the Ba, an aspect of your soul, in the afterlife, and it served as a medium for the dead to interact with the living. Recent studies of a Setet board in American museums suggest that the game, once simple, evolved into the game of death. The Egyptians were avid gamers, with Setet being the most popular game across all societal strata, from commoners to pharaohs and even their queens. Setet was widely played from 5,000 years ago until approximately 2,500 years ago, coinciding with the decline of pharaonic Egypt. Now, the game involved rolling dice and moving counters along a grid-like board with 30 squares. The objective was to be the first to move all 5 counters to the finish, the 30th square. The squares immediately before the finish, squares 26 to 29, are thought to represent a miss a turn or go to jail, akin to a modern board game. Over time, the design of the Setet board evolved, incorporating religious symbolism. According to a science mag, early Setet boards had simple vertical lines on square 28, which later versions replaced with 3 hieroglyphic birds symbolizing the soul. Texts from the Middle Kingdom onward describe the game as a metaphor for the soul's journey in the Duat, the realm of the dead where the souls were judged for their worthiness. The precise moment when a simple dice game gained spiritual significance has long been elusive. However, a Setet board at the Rosicrucian Egyptian Museum in San Jose, California is shedding new light on this transformation. The board, acquired by the Rosicrucians, is a mystical order claiming esoteric knowledge from ancient times, and it has an uncertain origin. It was carved to resemble a small table and in poor condition. This Setet board is believed to mark the transition from a secular pastime to a spiritual artifact. Number 6. Harpastum. Harpastum was an ancient Roman ball game derived from the Greek game epikairos. This social ball game, also referred to as the small ball game, gained widespread popularity during the Roman Empire's dominance over Europe. Determining the exact period when Harpastum was played is challenging due to the scarcity of surviving evidence. However, archaeologists suggest the sport originated around the 5th century BC and remained popular for approximately 700 to 800 years. The name Harpastum comes from the ball used in the game. Both Harpastum and epikairos were played in a similar manner, but little is known about their specific rules. Roman writing suggests that Harpastum resembled modern rugby or American football. The game demanded agility, speed, and endurance. The playing field was about the size of a modern hockey field, and Roman authors described the Harpastum ball as relatively firm compared to a contemporary softball. There is speculation that Julius Caesar played Harpastum to maintain physical fitness, and soldiers were known to play the game, especially in preparation for battles. The primary objective was to keep the ball on one's half of the field for as long as possible. Players aimed to score by getting the ball over the opposing team's line, and they were allowed to tackle, wrestle, or fight to prevent the other team from retrieving the ball. The exact method of scoring and determining the winner does remain unclear. Harpastum was played with small balls made by stuffing chopped sponges or animal fur inside stitched leather skins, with a diameter of approximately 8 inches. As a team sport, it never appeared in the ancient Olympics. However, the game's popularity spread across Europe due to the Roman army's extensive conquests. This led to the introduction of similar ball games in other nations, particularly in Britain, where the Romans brought Harpastum during their expansion. Number 5. Hounds and Jackals. Hounds and Jackals, also known as Dogs and Jackals, is an ancient Egyptian table game dating back approximately 4,000 years. Discovered by Howard Carter in a Theban tomb during the 12th dynasty, Carter unearthed one complete gaming set, which is now housed in the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. The game consists of a rectangular board with 2 sets of 29 holes and 10 small sticks adorned with either a jackal or dog's heads. Evidence suggests that the Hounds and Jackals was invented around 2000 BC, and it gained popularity during the Middle Kingdom period of ancient Egypt. Now, William Matthews Flinders Petrie first documented the game in 1890, and over 60 examples have since been found across Egypt, Mesopotamia, Israel, Syria, Iran, Azerbaijan, and the Levant. The gameplay involves 2 players, each taking 5 jackal or dog-headed sticks. The objective is to maneuver these sticks across the board's holes, possibly from one point to another. The game shares similarities with other ancient board games like 20 Squares or the Royal Game of Ur, and they're all race games for 2 players, often involving sticks or dice to determine turns and outcomes. Archaeological excavations have uncovered more than 68 game boards of Hounds and Jackals across various territories. The game's pieces have depicted animals like horses, cats, or sparrowhawks, in addition to dogs and jackals. In April 2018, archaeologist Walter Christ discovered examples of 58 holes in Gobustan, Azerbaijan, suggesting Bronze Age herders in the region had contacts with the Near Eastern world. Ancient games like Hounds and Jackals, they often served as social lubricants, facilitating cultural exchanges and interactions across different societies. Number 4. Namacha. The naval gladiator battles of ancient Rome, known as Namacha, provided a thrilling and grandiose spectacle that enthralled crowds. These events were not only displays of violence, but also showcased the technological prowess of the Roman Empire, featuring impressive waterworks and grandstands capable of accommodating thousands of spectators. The concept of Namacha was introduced by Julius Caesar in 46 BC, following his victory over Pompey the Great. Seeking to celebrate his triumph and demonstrate his power, Caesar orchestrated the first Namacha by constructing a basin near the river Tiber to simulate a naval battle. Events were meticulously staged reenactments of historic naval battles, often involving hundreds or thousands of combatants and rowers. Participants, known as Namachiari, were typically prisoners of war or convicts, although professional gladiators did participate. Despite the immense popularity, Namachas were rare occurrences due to the immense planning and expense required to stage one. To reduce some costs, though, some later Namachas were held on natural bodies of water, although these were often in smaller scale. After falling out of favor in ancient times, the tradition of Namacha was revived during the Renaissance period, reflecting a renewed interest in antiquity. These modern interpretations of Namacha, though less bloody, retain the spectacle of their ancient predecessors. Namachas also found their way to England, Scotland, France, and Spain, where they were staged as elaborate affairs or scaled-down mock battles in parks. Despite evolving over the centuries, the enduring appeal of Namacha as a display of power highlights the timeless fascination with grand spectacles and historical reenactments. Number 3. Water Jousting. Throughout ancient history, violent sports captivated audiences with their displays of bloodshed and brutality. From the gladiatorial combats of ancient Rome to the Mayan ball game and chariot racing in ancient Greece, these spectacles thrilled crowds with their intensity and their danger. One such violent sport from ancient Egypt was water jousting, also known as fishermen's jousting, which bears similarities to modern water jousting practiced in various European countries. Originating around 2800 BC, fishermen jousting was initially devised by the ancient Egyptians as a means to resolve disputes and conflicts. Men would engage in combat using long poles with razor-sharp points, attempting to knock their opponents off papyrus reed boats and into the Nile River. The stakes were high as most participants couldn't swim, leaving them vulnerable to the threat of drowning or attacks by crocodiles and hippopotamuses lurking beneath the surface. As the sport evolved, it spread to ancient Greece following Alexander the Great's conquest in 332 BC, eventually making its way to the Romans. By the late medieval period, water jousting had gained popularity, with crusaders using it as a team-building exercise before departing for war. The sport's popularity continued to grow, eventually crossing the English Channel onto England. Queen Elizabeth I was reportedly greeted with the spectacle of water jousting at Sandwich, sparking a local interest in the sport. Water jousting became ingrained in maritime culture, with competitions held to inaugurate maritime ports by the middle of the 17th century. Today, water jousting has evolved into a more sanitized form of its ancient counterpart. Each boat features a jouster and 10 oarsmen, accompanied by a drummer and an oboist playing medieval tunes. The jouster wears protective gear and wields a wooden lance and shield, standing on a raised platform at the front of the boat. When the two boats charge at each other, the jouster who falls first is declared the loser, marking a distinct departure from the perilous contests of ancient Egypt's Nile River. Number 2. Nine Men's Morris. Nine Men's Morris, a strategic board game dating back to at least the Roman Empire, has left its mark on history through various archaeological discoveries and literary mentions. The game, akin to modern checkers, involves two players maneuvering their respective sets of 9 pieces across a grid-like board, aiming to form rows of 3 pieces called mills to capture their opponent's pieces. The game is also known as mill, mills, or merrills, and has been referenced in literature, including Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream. Additionally, it's been referred to as cowboy checkers in North America, where it sometimes appears on the reverse side of checkerboards. Despite its historical significance, Nine Men's Morris is a solved game, meaning its optimal strategy has been calculated, resulting in a draw with perfect play from both sides. The game unfolds in 3 phases: placement, movement, and flying. During the placement phase, players take turn positioning their pieces on empty intersections. Forming a mill during this phase allows a player to remove one of their opponent's pieces. In the movement phase, players alternate moving their pieces adjacent to intersections, aiming to maintain their mills and hinder their opponent. Flying, introduced when one player is reduced to 3 pieces, allows pieces to move freely to any vacant intersection, adding a strategic element to the endgame. Strategic gameplay involves balancing the formation of the mills with maintaining versatility across the board. A winning position often involves shuttling a piece between 2 mills to remove an opponent's piece each turn. Variations in gameplay exist though, with some sources considering flying a standard rule and others treating it as a variation. And if you look a bit closer at Nine Men's Morris, it looks an awful lot like one of the first games many children learn in school, tic-tac-toe. Well, while we'll never fully know if the 2 aren't long-lost cousins, it's safe to say that at least they've lived in the same neighborhood. Number 1. Kivaki. When most people think of rugby, Tonga is not typically at the forefront of their minds. However, the island nation in the South Pacific has its own ancient version of the game with a unique twist. Tongan rugby was played underwater. Known as Kivaki, this game, according to the Tongan tradition, was played before kings and chiefs. Some Tongans are now interested in reviving a modernized version of the game to celebrate and preserve the culture. Kivaki was played underwater between 2 soft coral rocks. The participants were all male, and the sport was often performed in front of chiefs or ancient kings of Tonga. The objective of the game was to transport a rock across the underwater playing field to the other side while fending off the opposing team. Successfully doing so scored a try, and one of the social functions of the game was to impress the chief or the king. Winners of the game could be awarded land or titles, as was the case for a chief named Tokemoana. It's said that the game was pretty dangerous, with many men drowning while playing it. It was banned by a king because it was just too much. The danger involved, though, likely made participation and victory a sign of bravery and strength. While the game is often associated with entertainment and sports, it likely held a deeper significance. Similar to the Mesoamerican ball game or the ancient Olympics, Kivaki may have been a religious or ceremonial event, as it was a sporting one. The game could have had a deeper social, political, or spiritual connection to the Tongan way of life, beyond its role as entertainment. Tonga was first settled about 3,000 years ago during the expansion of the Lapita culture, known for its distinctive pottery and early settlement of the islands in the western Pacific. The ancient inhabitants of Oceania often defined themselves by the entire Pacific Ocean, or Moana Nui, not just by individual islands. Playing an underwater game would have been a way to demonstrate one's ability to navigate and endure the ocean's challenges, thus earning greater social prestige. Winning and surviving such a game would have been crucial for a Tonga man, leading to rewards like land and titles in a society where survival and navigation of the ocean were paramount. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you next time. Thank you to our channel members.